This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Back to the research talks here on Stockbox with Alan Green. Alan, how are you? It's a Sunday evening. We're recording this quite late than normal. But you've had an interesting weekend, I believe.
Yeah, it's been a great weekend. Well, went to see my granddaughter today. She was born a couple of weeks ago. Absolutely gorgeous, and we've been away. Trying to take advantage of the quiet markets and get away. We were away for a few weeks ago. In the motorhome and just buzzing around and staying in places. And we went to stayed in Children's. Actually, it was a lovely place. Near to a village called Turville, which is where they filmed The Vicar of Dibley. And the pub there is called the Bull and Butchers, and I highly recommend it. They do award-winning pies, and their pies have won national awards for 3 years on the trot. I had a venison and bacon pie, and the venison supplied locally. There's apparently the deers are at what they refer to as pest level in the Children's. So there's a fellow there has a license, and he culls the deer, and it's supplied to the local pubs. But the pies were fantastic, and thoroughly recommend it. So if you ever get down that way, well worth a look.
Okay, good. You're right about the markets, though, aren't they? A bit dire at the moment. There's still no life come back to them. It's a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I think if they continue this way, we're just going to carry on going away. So it's a cloud with a silver lining.
Yeah. Okay. Mrs. Green will be happy then.
She'll be great. Yeah.
Okay. So today you're going to talk to us about Global Energy Metals, which is TSX listed, and also an update on Destiny Pharma, who we have covered before. So do you want to start off with Global Energy Metals?
Yeah, let's discuss global energy. And of course, with Destiny, as you know, I interviewed Chief Executive Neil Clark about a week ago, and for some very interesting updates and upsides there. So if you want to know any more about Destiny, then do watch that interview. It's very good. Even if I say so myself, but I did nothing. It was all to do with Neil Clark. But Global Energy Metals, as you rightly say, Mark, they are TSX listed company. They also listed this summer on the OTCQB markets, primarily to give US investors who will probably have interest in their US projects the opportunity to gain some exposure, and of course European investors who may be interested in their Norwegian projects can of course take advantage of a Frankfurt listing as well. So they've really thought about investors around the world in their offering. But currently, I mean, the company really is listed at a very lowly level. We currently have a listing. The company is currently worth just over 7 million. I'm just bringing the share price information up now. Currently trading at 26 cents, Canadian cents, and it's with a market cap of $7 million, 7 million Canadian dollars. So that's probably equating to about 4.5 to 5 million sterling. And when you listen to the raft of projects they're engaged with, and I'm going to talk through each one, I think you'll agree with me that they are fundamentally undervalued. I know we could say a lot about, or we could attribute that statement to a number of resource companies at the moment who are fundamentally undervalued, but nonetheless, I think the ambition this company has really does mark it out. The company has laid out its portfolio as with a diversified global portfolio of battery mineral assets. And it's engaged in developing supply chain solutions for safe and reliable assets for downstream partners. So, in other words, it's seeking resources for battery metals that have longevity, are safe, easier to get to market, and can ensure ongoing supply chain stability for partners further down the road. It's undertaking this through exploration and development work and a number of peer group collaborations. It sets out a number of partnerships on the website. The Daru's geologist consultancy group, which are engaged very much with the US side of the or the US projects. It has the European Raw Minerals Alliance, the Battery Metals Association of Canada, has a partnership with Nevada Sunrise Gold Corporation, the American Battery Technology Company, Electric Royalties Limited, and also Metal Bank Limited for its Australian projects. So I'm going to go through each of the projects now and just outline where the groups are with each one. In Australia, has a company based there, as all operators in Australia have to set up local companies, and Global Energy are no different. It has Element Minerals Australia, which is invested into the Millennium Cobalt, Copper and Gold project in Queensland, which has a JORC inferred resource of 3.1 million tonnes of assets and resources, which include 0.14% of cobalt, 0.34% copper, and 0.12 grams per tonne of gold. Now, this is also part of the Mount Isa complex as well, and Mount Isa is prolific for gold production. Many companies operating there. You may listeners may remember I spoke about Castillo Copper, who are engaged there currently. They have a significant project there that they're working on. And with Global Energy Metal, through their local company, have an operation here at Mount Isa on Cobalt Ridge and Mount Dorothy. Mount Dorothy, they've sampled already there at 7 meter sample of 0.14% cobalt and 2.5% copper. Cobalt Ridge was better. Cobalt Ridge came in at 3.6% copper, 0.3% cobalt, and 1.25 grams per ton of gold. We already know that the Mount Isa project is substantial and is being well mined and well serviced. So the company also provided an update in September, so there's about 4 to 5 weeks ago. The company is partnering with Metal Bank. I mentioned Metal Bank as a partner, who have undertaken drilling at the Millennium Project and released the assay data from the southern part of the Millennium system. So the Mitchell Smith has said at that point, Mitchell Smith, of course, is the Gold Energy Metals chief executive. There's potential to significantly expand the scale at Millennium based on the drilling work that they undertook in the first instance. So very encouraging, and they're going to take that forward. Just a note on the board before I go on to the other projects. Mitchell Smith is president and chief executive, many years experience in the industry. Chief financial officer Lewis Hadjick, Erin Campbell, board and advisor. She has experience in government and in the battery industry. Gaston Remnol has experience in mining, smelting, and metals. He's engaged very much on the Canada and the Quebec side of the business, which I'll come to shortly. Peter Reynolds, 45 years experience, worked for BHP, Billiton, and other major companies. And Paul Sargent, who is the in-house geologist. Also a raft of other advisors working with Global Energy Metals going forward. So we then come to Norway. I should say that in Norway, the company has struck a 10% ownership of what the Rana nickel, cobalt, and copper project, and this takes in the Bruvan nickel, copper and cobalt mine, which was in operation from 1989 to 2002. The deposits there have been likened to the Voisey Bay in Canada nickel deposit. The operation has excellent near mine potential, and sampling previously identified 2.3% nickel from samples, 0.2% cobalt, and 0.3% copper. Recently, 6 new targets were identified, and the company is working to develop those with its partner. in October, the company announced that its ownership of Electric Royalties, which is also a stakeholder in the project now, was increased as the company undertook a 1% net smelter royalty at Rana in exchange for 2 million shares and a $100,000 cash payment, both to GMC, Global Energy Metals Corporation, and also the other stakeholder in the business there, which is SRH. That's Scandinavian Resource Holdings. So Rana Metals, or the Rana project, is advancing, and we will expect to hear more news from that upcoming as we go forward. We then move to Canada. The company has a stake in the Verna Lake mine, which is the former cobalt mine. There we have a JORC inferred resource of 6.3 tons of cobalt. It's in fact the cobalt there is 0.5%, and equates to 653,000 pounds of cobalt, and there's also a smattering of copper there too. Here the company has 70% ownership, with the other 30% down to another local company, and that's on the Ontario and Manitoba border. The mine there produced cobalt and ore, small amounts of cobalt and ore, in the 1930s and 1940s. So again, looking to bring this back on stream. And of course, cobalt, we've established on previous podcasts the importance of cobalt as a major component of battery metals. There is also a stake in the Chance Lake nickel and cobalt deposit in Quebec. Years ago, Hollinger Exploration estimated 716,000 tons of resource there in 1959. This is in the Nunavik territory. And just under 1% nickel, 0.1% cobalt, and also 0.6% copper. Also, the Amiral nickel copper asset in the Greenville territory, also in Quebec, 40 claims there over 2 zones, and a survey in 2002 established across some soil sampling, 1% nickel and 0.3% copper. So again, projects that require further work but are being moved forward. We then move to USA, where we have the Lovelock Mine and Treasure Box, a fantastic name, and this is this is a U.S. Battery Metals Corporation subsidiary, which owns 85%, with Nevada Sunrise owning 15%. There are some 80 odd claims here, and the territory covers, or the license territory covers, nickel, cobalt and copper mine, the Lovelock Mine, which was actually in production in the 19th century. Briefly, there are some old mine workings there. Was also drilled in 1910 and in 1976, and a decent percentage of copper was discovered in the ground there at that time. In Idaho, there are some 70 odd claims in Monument Park, and this is these are copper, silver, and gold, which also worked again in the early 1900s. Covers 2 small former copper mines, Jackson and Hungry Hill, another fantastic name there. And the best samples from Jackson included a huge amount of gold in the sample, 2,500 grams per ton of gold, 17% silver, 17.1% gold, and 13.5% copper. So some real potential there, which the company is going to be developing. Now, back to the first one, the Lovelock Mine. This is sited 150 kilometers from Sparks in Nevada, and here is located the Tesla Gigafactory 1, which is the world's largest battery factory. There are agreements in here being developed with American Battery Metals Corporation. Remember, I mentioned the partnerships the company has, and American Battery Metals Corporation includes former Tesla and Apple executives on the board. So again, they're a very quick route to market there once the asset is developed. So back in April, the company raised $550,000 from two New York-based institutions. The also previous financing round was increased to between $750,000 and $1 million. And again, those funds have been provided to undertake drilling work at Lovelock, and also further the Idaho and Quebec interests. So very much progressing the business, and the American Battery Metals Corporation is expanding its extraction development to not only include nickel and cobalt, but also lithium within the mix as well. So there's a complex infrastructure, as listeners have probably already gathered, with GEMC. But I think the important point to note here is that this spread of assets that the company has, the spread of relationships that it has in place, the partnerships that it has in place, all come within the company. Epicode, incidentally, GEMC, I mentioned that before, but this all comes within the company that currently has a market cap of about 4 million sterling, which frankly, to me, is fundamentally undervalued. Just on the relationships alone, it should be far higher than that. Currently, there are 27 million shares in issue, and that could increase to just under 41 million fully diluted. That's when all the warrants are exercised, and that could raise potentially a further $4.5 million for the company going forward. So, in summary, a wide and diverse range of assets around the globe, district scale opportunities in each of the areas, a board with an immense amount of experience and an immense amount of networks and relationships already in place that could really see Global Energy Metals become a key part of the battery supply chain for not only in the US but around the world as we go forward into 2022. So at a very exciting juncture, fundamentally undervalued, and but worth going to the website. The website, incidentally, is globalenergymetals.com. Go and have a look at the projects, have a look at the board, and decide for yourself.
Excellent. Well, good summary, Alan. A lot to cover there, but really this company taking a portfolio approach, it seems, to battery metals, and a valuation of 4 million is extremely low, and also not many shares in issue, which is also a bonus.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Very, very tightly held. Obviously, some warrants to come to be diluted. So, but I mean, 27 million in issue at the moment, and 40 million, or just 41 million total, totally fully diluted, and that'll be that. So, yeah, very tightly held, and I think everything to play for. I mean, any movement. I think if you look at this and compare this to say what Paul Johnson's done at Power Metals, any one of these projects develops and moves, or a takeover deal is agreed, then you're going to see a massive revaluation to the upside. So I think there's huge potential here, and as with all companies like this, the spread of opportunity really reduces the risk profile substantially. If you're looking at a company with one project, then you've got a one-trick pony, which could go very well. But if it doesn't work out, then what are you left holding? Nothing. Exactly. With here, you've got 6 projects around the world, any one of which could explode into life at any time.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much. So let's talk about Destiny Pharma then.
Okay, so Destiny Pharma. I interviewed CEO Neil Clark about a week ago, just over a week ago, and of course the The connection here is that we're based at Sussex Innovation Centre, and Destiny Pharma are based in the same place. So we've been there one way, shape, or form. I started Share Crazy there many years ago, which of course we sold in the early noughties, and Brand Communications has been based there ever since. And Destiny Pharma, Dr. Bill Love, the founder, has also started there, and I knew Bill years ago when he was working on the XF73 light activated antibacterial drug to combat hospital superbugs such as MRSA. And as pharma investors will know, you go through a cycle with drugs and with potential treatments for diseases, where you have to go through the testing phase, the clinical phase, the testing phase, where you had to receive approval to test the drug, and you go through the various phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and XF73 is now at late phase 3, and that means once it's past that phase, it can then be used, and it's already being used in trials around the world, as you'll see going forward, and of course the treatment has to go through the series of steps. So Destiny Pharma's portfolio of assets includes, of course, XF73, which is the core asset. The company raised just over 10.5 million sterling just over a year ago to acquire the global rights for NTCDM3, and this is a phase 3 asset. An asset's already at phase 3, and this is used to treat the prevention of C. difficile. So aside from the core XF73 asset, which treats Staphylococcus and post-operative infections. You may remember MRSA, of course, a hospital superbug from a few years ago, and the company's undergone a series of trials, and the trials have been hugely successful. And the treatment is administered in the form of nasal gel. So quite simply, is the patient's treated, and it's absorbed into the bloodstream and gives the patient the immunity and the ability to ward off these diseases. The company is also engaged in a battle against COVID too, and this took place back in. It was announced in September 2020, just over a year ago. Neil Clark was at a conference in the States and met a Professor Simon Cutting, who worked who was the chief executive of a company called Sporegen, and they discussed working together to using the immunity that or the human immune system products that Destiny are generating with their research, as to develop a trial to develop a resistance against COVID using the innate human system, and again using a nasal spray or gel, and Destiny's been very successful at raising grant money over the years. It's raised some 3.5 million in grants, and for this work, it received an 800,000 grant from Innovate UK. So that's very much underway at the moment. The company currently is funded, Neil tells us, through to October 2022. So there's a year's cash funding in place. But he did say that the late phase 3 trials for XF73, they will be speaking to partners and other sources of non-dilutive funding ongoing to put in place the funding for the final part of the phase 3 trials before XF73 gets out there into the marketplace. So it's a hugely exciting time. Destiny shares are currently trading at £1.13. They've traded as high as £2.50, as low as 60p. So it's currently got a market cap of 67 million. And if you look at comparable pharma companies listed on the Nasdaq, you're looking at for most companies with developments of this nature, a market capitalization of 150 to 200 million, sometimes higher than that. So I think Destiny is fundamentally undervalued, and once the once it receives US FDA approval to launch both the NTCDM3 product and also XF73 as a nasal gel into those markets, is going to hugely change. But the company has many partnerships and many contacts, and of course it recently announced that it had undertaken a step into China with China Medical Systems, who are developing and promoting XF73 out to hospitals and trials across China. So that's another big step for the company to take. And Neil said, in terms of milestones for the next 6 months, obviously we've mentioned the XF73 phase 3 trials, further agreements with US regulators. There will be news from the Spore Cove product they're developing with SporeGen and Neil's partner, Professor Simon Cutting, who he was at school with, and of course there will be further phase 3 news for NTCDM3. So at a very exciting phase, and I think fundamentally undervalued. If we look at the share price action, the shares have really traded very much flat since June this year, in line with many other stocks. But there's very much a floor in the share price at current levels, and I think buying at the current price, offers great value and could, see some handsome returns as we go into next year.
Good. Yeah, it's good to get that update and see that they are still pressing on and still very much quite significant potentially upside to be had in the share price and the company. So yes, well, thank you very much, Alan, for giving us the investment case for both Global Energy Metals Corp and Destiny Pharma today.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.